Hello, and thank you for joining the Champion Within podcast, your premier go-to spot for unlocking your winning mindset. Whether you're an athlete looking to elevate your game to the next level, a coach leading the charge, an enthusiastic parent cheering from the sidelines, or an educator molding young minds, the Champion Within podcast episodes are packed with value, sharing the tools and strategies to unlock your potential and rise to new heights. Hosted by mentor, coach, and mindset leader Kate McCauley. Let's sit back and enjoy today's episode while discovering your champion within. And now, here's Kate.
Hey champions, welcome into the fourth season of The Champion Within. What do you think of when you hear of the word grit? That's really the theme that I want to go with this season is grit, game, and the mental edge. I think a lot of us hear those words, but how does that impact you and your life? Today, we are going to hear a little bit about what I think about that. I'm putting a little twist on this. I went into ChatGPT. I follow along with a lot of marketing podcasts and different things so that I can figure out how to do this business world. And ChatGPT is a good and a bad thing in my opinion, but I put a little bit of information in about my business and just some different things that I'm doing and some goals for myself in the future of the Champion Within. I asked ChatGPT to create a list of questions that if someone was to interview me on the podcast, what would ChatGPT want to ask that listeners would want to know? And then I did not look at what it had said. I asked ChatGPT to put it into a document, and then I just simply had that printed out, and I'm going to be interviewed today. We'll see how this goes. I asked my son, Danny, since he was on the podcast before, and he's home on college break. He got suckered into this in some ways to interview me since he's familiar with the studio here that I'm in and just podcasting in general. Thank you, Dan, for doing this, and we'll see what ChatGPT spit out for us. All right, Dan, you're up.
There you go. Okay, first question. What was the moment you knew you had to leave teaching to pursue mindset coaching?
Oh, the moment I knew I had to leave teaching. I don't know if there was actually a moment that I knew I had to leave teaching, but 6 years before I resigned, I had a situation that was really traumatic for me at the time. I was leaving spring conferences. It was parent, teacher, student night. And I walked into the parking lot into a situation where a kid on a bike was pointing a gun at another student and his mother. I reacted in the moment, started yelling, and I don't know if it was my scary teacher voice or the kid on the bike decided that this was a terrible life decision. But anyway, he, rode off. They ended up recovering the gun in someone's front yard. It was a long night for me, and a lot of things changed, but that was really when my exit strategy from education started. But it literally took me 6 years. I guess during COVID is when I finally took the leap, but I didn't initially go into the mindset world. I thought I was going to do construction because that's what my husband's in. I was going to be the head of the company and he was going to run the day-to-day operation, but I didn't want to do that either. A lot of weird certifications I have, but I guess that gun situation really, if I go back, was when I knew I had to leave. It just took me a while.
Okay. Would you say there were any fears that almost stopped you from taking that step?
Yeah, it took me 6 years. There was a lot of fears. My kids were little at the time. That's why I didn't leave. Everyone in my inner circle, family, friends, people were just telling me, why would you go back? I can't even believe you went back the next day. And I was in such a toxic work environment that I almost didn't realize how bad it was because I was telling myself every single day that I could handle this. I'm tough enough to do this. I also didn't give myself enough credit for all of the skills that I had developed as an educator, which really did take some time for me to even acknowledge when I did leave my teaching career. I think there were fears, am I good enough? to leave education and do something else. I used to Google, what else can I do with my teaching degree? I would always think, well, I'm just a teacher. I'm very different now in my mindset, but most definitely there was fears. And I think sometimes they still creep in. I have to constantly focus on moving through and getting past that.
All right. Backpacking off what you said about your kids, how does your personal story of being a mom to a child with a unique brain shape your work today?
I think that the fact that Ryan, my youngest son, has a uniquely beautiful brain, which means he has ADHD, auditory processing disorder. He has a severe case of dyslexia. He had a speech delay when he was very little, to the point that really only myself and his siblings, Danny and Kylie, could understand him. Even my husband had a hard time because he couldn't really articulate words. And I think all of those things combined, and the fact that he's very intelligent, to the point that when he was tested, they denied services because he was so intelligent, which I had to fight for fiercely. Just because you're intelligent doesn't mean you don't need services for those other areas. Everyone in those places were working with funding, but they really wanted to just say, maybe he will catch up. I think the fact that I had to learn how to become a fierce advocate because of Ryan's uniquely beautiful brain. I took a lot of courses and training when I was still in education, and I was using those things for my students and the athletes I worked with and Ryan, because I realized it was helping Ryan change and that it could be useful for my students who were coming to my building with a lot of baggage and things that were out of their control, just like this was out of control of Ryan. He had no control over what his brain chemistry was made up of. These children, even at the high school level, had no control over what was going on in their home lives. But when you could reprogram their brain through visualization and self-talk and whatnot, they could control how they respond to situations and what they do and don't do. And through visualization, self-talk, things like that, and taking all of those trainings, I think that I was forced in some ways to learn. It was a struggle and there was a lot of stress because I worry about Ryan, but also it's a gift because now I get to tell other people how to do this.
Would you say that you learned some valuable lessons about resilience through Ryan's childhood?
Absolutely. I think that Ryan teaches me every single day. We were just out to dinner the other night, and Danny actually said, Ryan, you just don't even care. You're just chilling, enjoying the journey. And he really is truly like that. And don't get me wrong, Ryan has had moments where he is very stressed and frustrated that, he couldn't read something. As I said, the dyslexia piece has been a challenge. He could not read the word THE and say that it was the until the end of second grade, beginning of third grade. Not because we weren't working on it, but really he just couldn't crack the code. And with the help of his teachers, the Wilson Reading Program and visualization, self-talk, mantras, things like that, and really reprogramming his brain, that's how things changed. But yes, I definitely have gained resilience and a different way to look at the world because he sees the world differently. And I'm forced to see the world differently through his eyes. I'm a little nervous about what he will say because he's brutally honest. I vividly remember being in an evaluation because, I wasn't exactly sure what was going on inside of Ryan's brain. He did a lot of testing when he was fairly young. And I remember a woman who was testing him, a doctor, psychologist, and she said, don't bring him back here until he is fully medicated because he was screwing around with her. And she was showing pictures of fruit in a bowl, and she wanted him to list grapes, oranges, bananas. And he kept saying things like healthy items that you could eat. And he would say everything but the actual names of the food. And he knew he just didn't want to do this testing anymore. He was blatantly screwing with her. And she said something about the medicine. And, I was telling her that I wasn't ready to medicate yet. And very quickly, he just started chuckling to himself and said, laughter is the best medicine. And she said, get out of my office. Just get out of my office. I was embarrassed at the time, but then by the time I got to the car, I was laughing because he's like, that lady, don't take me back to her, So yes, I've gained resilience, but there's definitely been some tears along the way.
What's the hardest truth you faced about yourself since starting your business?
Wow, ChatGPT, you're coming in hot here. The hardest truth I've faced about myself since starting my business is I can't do everything by myself. When I first left, I remember having a mentor who was free with the US government Small Business Association. They give you this program where you can connect with a mentor, and he was amazing. And I remember him saying to me, I love working with people who are educators and leave because they can do anything. You can get kids who are in a cafeteria throwing ketchup around to cooperate, get it together, and get back to the classroom without anybody totally freaking out. You can do anything. And I remember thinking, he's right, I can do anything. I was trying to do all of the things in the beginning myself, thinking I was in this crazy environment as a teacher and I was figuring it out. So I can do anything. That was untrue. I can't do everything. I am not an expert in marketing. I am not an expert in podcasting. I didn't know everything about visualization, breath work, all the things I do now. I had to invest in people to help me learn. Even now, people to help me grow the business. I had to lean in and trust to let others help me because I can't do everything.
Do you think this had an impact on how you coach others?
I do, because I think that I walk the walk. Every time I am coaching someone and we're moving through, I'm guiding them, whether it's one-to-one, group, or if I'm at a speaking engagement and I talk with them afterwards at the Q&A. Anytime I'm creating something, I think of one person in general. And I really do think, because I do these things myself and I've experienced it, that, it allows me to help others. I also am willing to say to them that I don't know everything. There's been plenty of times where I've told people, I am not the expert in that area, but I know someone who is, or I will help you find someone who is. I do think that that has helped me and why people trust me, because they see me doing the thing. I'm not just talking the talk, I'm walking the walk, and I'm honest with them.
What does the word grit mean to you specifically, and when was the last time you truly had to live through grit?
The word grit to me means that you are willing to go all in. You're willing to just do the work, put your head down and grind. I often think about it when I'm at the gym. If I'm on the spin bike at that cycle where they tell you to stand up and kind of lean back, they're always saying, like, put your butt back and you're leaning forward. You're not really supposed to be leaning on the bike, almost just there so you don't fall off, but your head is down. And you have to do that. And I think about that with grit, with my business. Sometimes I just have to put my head down and do the work. And other people don't always get that, especially people who are not in business. That, to me, is grit. Put your head down and do it. Even if you don't want to sometimes, you got to be willing to do it because it pays off in the long run. Those small little things stack up. And the last time I had to do it was probably today. I do that every day. People don't always see it. I sent a text out actually to the mom group that I'm friends with. I call them the Mom Tribe. I said, Happy New Year, that kind of stuff. We're always texting each other. I said, all the things that people don't see you doing, good for you. Acknowledge yourself. I think every day. People who really have that grit quality, you do it every day. People just don't see it. And it's not really for other people to see. What they see is the outcome, and that's okay. It's, it's not really the shiny trophy. It's the in-between.
What would you say is a routine or habit you have that others may find extreme or unconventional?
I think probably the one that is extreme or unconventional is every single day I try to make myself feel uncomfortable. I think that people might not believe me when I say that, but I do that every single day. I make sure it happens every day when I get a shower. I turn the shower to ice cold at the end, and we have a rain shower type thing in our master bedroom. I will just stand in that, and I will say, I used to do it for 10 seconds and then just get out real quick. And in the summer, it's not as bad because I'm like hot, and it's not as bad. It almost feels good in some ways. Maybe I sound like a psycho when I said that with the ice cold water, but in the winter, it's harder because it's cold. I'm often cold even in the warmth of my house. I used to do it for just 10 seconds because that became easy. Now I take it to the next level and I say my intentions while I am under that cold water, which is harder. And I will tap through. I use some tapping methods to remind myself that this too shall pass after I say those intentions, and it does. And then I do other things throughout the day to make myself uncomfortable because I tell myself if I can do uncomfortable things, then when I have to do that within my business, not necessarily standing in the cold water, but if I have to do something that feels uncomfortable or I go back into that fear of I was a teacher, how am I supposed to do this? I'm not a business owner. I remind myself that I can get uncomfortable. I can move through it. But I think some people probably think it's unconventional to do that.
If someone saw your life behind the scenes, what would surprise them the most?
If someone saw my life behind the scenes, I think the thing that would surprise them the most, I drop the occasional F-bomb. And I think that people think because I'm really into the mindset stuff that I'm super woo-woo. I do those things, but I'm also keeping it real. I think that's also why people connect with me in many ways. But sometimes, I don't know, hit the trash can on the way out and I'll drop the F-bomb. I don't know. I think that might surprise some people, but I don't know.
How do you show yourself grace during tough days in life?
This is something that I feel like I have to constantly work on. I'm tough on myself. To show myself grace, I have to purposely work on that. I will try to focus on slowing down. That means if I'm eating breakfast, for example, not to rush through it to get to what I need to do. Slowly eat, enjoy the coffee, make sure that I give myself time for me, going to the gym, trying to take a walk, and just remind myself that I need to rest. Whatever it is, paying attention to my body or signs that I'm noticing. If I'm stressed, that I need to take care of those things and give myself grace, because I've found when I don't do that, it never works out. But this is hard for me because I do think that I should be able to do everything. Back to that, I should be able to handle everything.
What's the biggest failure you faced in your business, and what did it teach you?
The biggest failure is I trusted someone to do marketing for me. I consider this a failure. I trusted a woman last spring to do marketing for a digital course and program that I really put my whole heart and soul into. And she sold herself to be something she wasn't. And honestly, in reflection, maybe I wanted her to be something that she wasn't as well. I didn't ask some questions that I should have. I learned a lot from that situation, but I also spent a lot of money, and I consider that a failure because I jumped in too quick with that because I wanted it to work. And I ended up being really stressed, a lot of late nights doing it myself. I learned a lot. And I think that it also impacted me being able to trust other people to help me with my business. I'm also learning that not everybody is going to be like that person, that I have to be open to trusting people again, but I have to do it the right way. I have to ask the right questions and not assume that everyone is going to be like me. That was a problem I had and really did lead to that failure. I assumed, and I still do this sometimes, that people will be like me and that they will rise to what my expectations are. And not that I want them to be invested in my business the way I am. I actually don't expect anyone to be invested in the business like I am invested in my business. But if somebody takes a job on, let's say it's marketing, or they're going to write content, whatever it is, I would expect them to do an amazing job because I would do an amazing job at my job. But not everybody does that. Some people half-ass shit. And I have to remind myself of that. I can't expect everyone to be the way I am. That's what I consider my biggest failure in my business right now. I trusted her too much and I lost a lot of money there. But I also learned. I had to let myself fail to learn.
You often talk about visualization. What's the most powerful vision you've created for yourself, and has it come true yet?
I'm obsessed with visualization. This is the really biggest part of what I do with my clients. In the beginning of a one-to-one session with my clients, I've actually added this in for my new clients within the past 6 months, that we start with this, we ground in, I guide them through a little bit of guided visualization just to relax. And then at the end of our call, I guide them through. I do it in every workshop, in speaking engagements. I even weave it in because I know it does change the brain. I did it with Ryan. It literally cracked the code of dyslexia. I have a lot of training in it. But anyway, for myself, I do it multiple times a day. Visualization quite literally has built my business. I think sometimes people don't fully believe me, but I'm telling you that it has been a game changer for me. And I use it every day. I have people guide me through. I would say the most powerful visualization that I've experienced related to my business was one where I was being guided and I saw myself speaking to a large group. And I was happy, smiling, just walking up. And yeah, that did actually happen this past November. And it wasn't exactly the same, but the room was almost identical. The people there were saying some of the same things that were said in that visualization. It's kind of crazy, but I could see that happening. And the same thing has happened with working with teams of athletes. When I rebranded for the Champion Within, guided me to say, turn your head and look and see who you see. And I saw different athletes and teams that were asking me questions. And I'm doing that now in workshops with high school athletes. And sometimes it's almost surreal. I've been here before because I've had that visualization. And for people who don't do visualization, you think like, what the? I would challenge you to try it because it's literally a way to rewire your brain. And your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and what you're really experiencing. It helps you navigate through those fear limiting beliefs that pop in.
What's the most misunderstood part of what you do as a mindset coach?
I think probably what I just said, that people don't always believe that it's possible. And that is simply because you cannot see inside the brain. I myself even have a hard time telling people what I do sometimes. Other people will say to me that they feel this energy, almost like an out-of-body experience. And oh my gosh, I can't believe what just happened here. It gets very deep and emotional for people. I think that until you experience it, it's hard for other people to understand it. They just think it's woo-woo, witchcraft, magic stuff. It's really not. It's neuroscience. It's all based on science. And you do it every day. You tell yourself every day how the day is going to be or what's going to happen. You just don't even realize it. But this is just hard for people to understand because they can't see inside the brain.
How do you handle the pressure to, quote unquote, practice what you preach when life gets overwhelming?
I actually have intentions that I use there. So the one that I use is, well, I'll just share both of the intentions. When life gets overwhelming, I lean on the intentions that I have created with myself, with my mentors who have helped me create these. And I have two of them. One is more with my business and the other one is more personal, although it helps my business as well. The personal one is, I am devoted to taking care of myself in mind, body, and spirit every single day, especially on the days when it is inconvenient. I think that last part covers that. And the second one is, I am in flow with my business practices bringing in consistent income, working with a team I trust, and doing what I love. I had to work through that second one, especially because of the trust piece. I just repeat them and I close my eyes and I picture myself doing it. Then I remember the people that tell me that this has changed their life. It helps me on the days where I'm cursing a lot and I'm annoyed.
What's one thing you wish every parent of an athlete understood about mindset?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question. I wish every parent of athletes would understand that the mental side of the game is just as important, the physical side of the game. I also really wish that I could get every parent who has an athlete to sit in my village mentality talk. This is something I do after a workshop with a team or when I go into an elementary school and I run an assembly for the Champion Within. I bring a red carpet, all this fun stuff. I tell the principal, this is just part of the deal. It's not an extra. I do what's called the village mentality. And it's not just for athletes, but it does help your athlete too, even if they're a little athlete. I wish every parent would sit in that village mentality talk because it does take a village. And I give them little tips to help them because you can't see inside your son or daughter's brain. But if you would just be in there and I could give you these things so you didn't have to figure it out like I did with Ryan, your athlete would be in such a better place.
If this were the last interview you ever gave, what legacy would you want to leave behind?
Ooh, I think if this were my last interview, which it better not be, I have a lot of interviews to give. I think I would want to leave the legacy of how it will have a ripple effect. Once they learn it, it has a ripple effect with every single person that they encounter. Their friends, their family, their children, their future children, the people who get to hire them, work with them, their teammates, their coaches, if they are a coach, their athletes, that ripple effect. I want that to be the legacy once I teach them. And I tell people all the time, when I teach you this, go teach someone else this because then you learn it again. And that's the ripple effect. That's what I think I would want the legacy to be.
All right, final question. If you could go back or forward to any age or moment in your life for one day only, what would you choose and what are you doing for that day?
This question is new for season 4. It used to be the life swap. And everyone always asks me, well, who is your life swap? I have never answered the life swap. Yeah, I think I'm going to answer that one first. My life swap would be Kobe Bryant. The whole basketball mentality, I think it would be awesome to be in his brain, his level of focus and mindset. I would love to be there. I think that it would just be an awesome week. And to answer this question, if I would go back or forward, and I know I always say live in the present moment. Of course, I still promote that. But if I could go back or forward, I'm not going forward. I want to let things evolve as they will. I don't want to have a preview, so to speak. But if I could go back, I think I would probably go back to that day after the gun. I think I would go back. I wouldn't tell myself to leave. I would go back and say the stuff I say now. This too shall pass. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Because honestly, if I had left then, I wouldn't have experienced some of the things that help me now. I mean, COVID learning sucked. I had to teach virtually, and now I speak to people as a virtual speaker. People ask me all the time, are you comfortable doing this on Zoom? I just spoke to over 400 people in November on a Zoom presentation where I was the closing keynote, and they asked me if I was comfortable running that and organizing the rooms and keeping the conversation going, breakout rooms. And the answer is a hard yes, because I had to teach during COVID. So if I left that next day or that school year even, I wouldn't have learned those things. I think I would have liked to go back to that next day because I went to work. I was so freaking pissed at my school district that One, they didn't want to tell the other teachers that there was a gun in our parking lot. I was furious and told them that if they don't tell the staff that something happened yesterday, I was going to literally start screaming it. And they didn't, I don't even think they told all of the details, but they told sort of what happened. I did end up leaving and I went home, but I think I would have gone back that day. I would have still demanded that they told the staff, but I would have also said that I want a whole goddamn week off because I was freaking traumatized by that. And instead, what happened was I was there for pretty much the whole morning. I took maybe the afternoon off and pretended like everything was fine. And then the next day, I ran the junior prom. It was a Friday. It happened on Wednesday. Thursday morning, I dealt with all that after being in a police station all night, Wednesday night. And then half day, Thursday, Friday, I'm there because I was running the prom, which I had to demand that they had police at because the kid who had the gun pointed at him, he was attending that prom. And the district didn't want to send police officers there because they didn't want to act like there was a problem. I'm still furious that they never even told our kids or their parents. It was wrong. It was the beginning of a lot of the issues, in my opinion. I should have demanded some things that I didn't. I would have gone back and relived that Thursday and had a long talk with myself about things I should have said. I don't know if I would have listened, but that's what I probably would have done. And honestly, I do think I was exactly where I was meant to be every single step of the way. Yeah, that's how I would answer that question. All right. Well, thanks, Dan, for interviewing me. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And I look forward to sharing all of our amazing guests and our panel chats that are coming for season 4. Rooting for you always.
Thank you for hanging out with Kate today. And whether you're going to coach, teach, cheer from the sidelines, or hitting the field yourself, remember, mindset is everything. Don't forget to follow the show for the latest episodes, as we all need a little extra motivation, humor, and sanity in our busy lives. Now, go and unleash your champion within you, one step at a time. We're always rooting for you.